Greetings, conquerors. It has been a while since we've been together. First, let me say it's good to see you. Secondly, thank you as always for your support. And thirdly, as always, I am proud of you for your success. I hope things have been going well. I hope your evolution has been going not necessarily smooth, but consistent, healthy, and productive. I hope things are really progressing well for you. But either way, I'm proud of you for moving forward. All right, so today there's been something on my mind and on my heart for a while, and I want to just kind of share something briefly with you. Here's the disclaimer. As always, I'm not sure where you are with God, whether you believe in God or Jesus or whatever, but I do. So this is everything I'm about to share comes from that place. So if that is an issue for you, it's okay to go ahead and move on to another video or just hit stop or whatever. The second part of that is you personally may not need what we're going to share today, but someone that's close to you might need this. So if you don't mind, please help me out and share this with someone that you may think can benefit from what we're going to share today. I can guarantee you we won't be long because I just believe that if you have something of quality to say, it may not require a lot of words to say it. So let's just get right into it. Today, this video is going to be entitled, "I Refuse to Stay Like This." Okay, I refuse to stay like this. Now, typically when we are together, I'm generally speaking to the entrepreneur, to the pastor, the preacher, the business owner or business expander or the career person. But today I want to deal with you personally. Today I want to deal with all of us personally. I refuse to stay like this. Let me go ahead and spoil it for you. Let me just go ahead and give you the conclusion now, and then we'll just sort of trace it backwards. The point is, it really doesn't matter what you do in your life, professionally or in ministry. If you as a person is broken, if you as a person, if you're still hurting, if you're still dealing with some confusion, some bitterness, some unforgiveness, or whatever the case is, sort of the remnants of whatever it is that has happened to you, if those things don't get solved, if those things never get resolved, it's going to affect everything you do. We've discussed this on more than one occasion. I think we've said something like this in some other videos in pieces, but this video is going to be completely dedicated to the fact that we refuse to stay like this. Okay, so as sort of a backdrop, we're going to use there's a situation in the Gospel of John, chapter 11. Okay, I'm not going to assume that it is a familiar text because you might not have ever really paid attention. You might not have looked at it. It's okay. I'm not tripping either way. But it's the Gospel of John, chapter 11. And what happened was Jesus and his disciples were together doing whatever it was that they were doing. And somebody brought word to Jesus that his friend Lazarus was sick. And he was sick up until the point of death. In other words, whatever it was that he had was going to kill him. And so what they decided was, we need to get word to Jesus. His sisters, Mary and Martha, decided we need to get word to Jesus, because if anybody can deal with this, and if anybody would be willing to deal with this, it would be Jesus, because we're friends. He loves us. We're close. We're tight. We got history. So what happened was Jesus decided that he wasn't going to leave yet. He wasn't going to go immediately and see about him. So what that did, what happened was, that was a death sentence for Lazarus. Because had Jesus had left immediately, there was still a chance. But the fact that he decided to wait a couple more days, that essentially means I'm not coming. I'm not going to solve this problem right now because there's something greater that needs to be done. I need you to remember we're dealing with I refuse to stay like this. I need to speak with the voiceless. I need to talk to those of you who you are in fact called for something. God has in fact decided to use you as an example for something. And so the point of this video is just sort of how do you deal with what you're dealing with while you're dealing with it. And what I mean by that is how in the world do you stomach the fact that you know God is doing something great in your life? You know doggone well you and God got history. You and Jesus are tight because you pray and you study and you listen to what he says and you go to the things that he wants you to go to and you serve and so your relationship with God is solid. However, in this case, when you believe you need him the most, he doesn't seem to be there. How do you deal with that stuff, right? So I'm talking about the voiceless because everybody in the text, we heard from them. We heard from everybody in the text except Lazarus. In other words, we heard what Jesus had to say. We heard what Mary and Martha had to say. We heard what the disciples had to say. We heard what some of the other people had to say, but we never hear from Lazarus. Okay, so I refuse to stay like this. Okay, so imagine this. So at some point Jesus decided, and most of this I'm trying to move through it quickly because I need you to take some time and actually study this text for yourself, because my talking about it will never give you what actually studying it on your own can supply for you. Okay, so Jesus decides that, okay, now we're gonna go. And as he's approaching the city, all this is going on and Lazarus is in the tomb because Lazarus, by this time, he had passed away. He's already gone. Okay, so as Jesus is approaching the city, Martha hears that he is close, and she doesn't allow him to get too far into where they are. She goes rushing out to him, and the first thing she says is, "Look, if you had been here, my brother Lazarus would have died." Now, here's the thing. They're at basically a funeral, and half the people are mourning his death, and half the people are celebrating his death, because here's the truth. Just because Jesus loves you, that doesn't always mean that love translates to everyone. I refuse to stay like this. Okay, so everybody's doing what they're doing, and Lazarus is in the tomb. He's dead. He is gone. Okay, so what happens now? What happens now, I think, is interesting. After some conversation and after some tears by Jesus himself, he tells them to roll the stone away. And he has other conversations. And he even has a conversation with God. And he's standing there with tears in his eyes. And Jesus is a bit torn because he recognizes the pain that these people are going through. But he's also legitimately happy because he knows what's about to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to impress upon you the fact that what we need to understand is that being called does not mean glamorous. It does not equal Lamborghini. There's a cost and there's a price to sort of bask and bathe in the glory of God. There is in fact a cost for that. All of this stuff is going on and Lazarus is still in the tomb. He's still dead. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever felt written off? Have you felt like I've done what I'm supposed to do, but I don't understand why this is happening to me? I don't get it. There are some people who don't care anything about you, God, and they seem to be living a little bit better than me. And my pain is so severe, and people have written me off because here's what happened. One of the comments that was made is the fact that Lazarus had been in the tomb for so long, he had began to stink. The stench of death was seeping out of the tomb, which makes it clear that he's dead and gone. So let's get away from that. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can just encourage you a little bit right now. One of the things that we have to remember is when we're going through our thing and God is preparing us, sometimes isolation is required. And one of the methods of isolation is making you unpleasant to be around. And what I mean by that is sometimes God will allow certain circumstances to happen that would make you a lot less appealing to be around. Now, see, this is a blessing, because what that does is that immediately eliminates all the losers that have just been hanging on. What that does is it eliminates the people that really didn't mean you no good in the first place. What that does is it highlights the people who really love you, because only somebody who really loves you is going to want to be around you when you are in fact stink. There's only a limited amount of people who will want to be around you when you are unpleasant to be around and when you are sort of going through your thing. But let's get to the fact that all of this is going on. Lazarus is still in the tomb. So Jesus instructs them to roll the stone away. They roll it away. The smell begins to come out, and then Jesus just utters some very simple words. He says, "Lazarus, come forth." Okay? Now, the problem with this text and the problem with what's going on is ever since a particular moment in the Old Testament happened, our situation with God has been a partnership. In other words, God does his part and we are supposed to do our part. So what happened? He tells Lazarus to come forth, and then Lazarus gets up and he comes forth. Okay, so here's the part where I need us to get. Everything that we've said up to this point has been specifically for this moment. It does not matter what God says or what God does or how he sort of positions things for us to be delivered, for us to be set free, for us to be better, for us to even live again. There are some things that we have to do as well. If Lazarus had stayed still, he would have been stuck in the doggone tomb, but he got up. Now here's the problem. Now, many of us are just lazy. Let's just go ahead and call it what it is. Many of us are lazy and we want God to just lay it out there for us. Like if we go to a comedy show, we would prefer our jokes. We would prefer that the jokes not be too complicated. We want it to be easy. Or if we go to the movies, we don't really want to see anything that would require us to think. We want to just go see something, have a good time, get a few laughs. We want to be real lazy about our experiences, even our experiences with God. Now, here's what happened. Not only was Lazarus wrapped up in the grave clothes, but his feet and his hands were bound as well. The Bible specifically says that his feet and his hands were bound. And his face was covered. So his ability to walk, right? His ability to feel or touch things with his hands, and his ability to see was all hindered. Why? Because they were all bound. His feet, his hands were covered, and his feet and his hands, they were bound, and his face was covered up. Everything about the quote-unquote important parts of our lives has been basically constricted by death, okay? By this illness, whatever it was that killed him. Okay, so Lazarus goes from in a laid position, all right, to sitting up, to standing up and having to walk real slow. Now, he's having to just rely on the voice because he can't see yet. He's having to rely on limited balance, or he's having to concentrate more on balance because his feet are still bound. So his steps are extremely slow because it is limited. Now the issue is, what's going on in your life that still has you bound? What's constricting your movements? What's keeping you in that tomb? What's keeping you from moving forward in your life in a more productive way? Are you blind? Has somebody pulled the wool over your eyes and you are blind and you can't see? Has somebody sort of tied your hands? Are you at work, or are you in a ministry and you've supposedly been put in charge of some stuff, but every time you want to move forward, every time you try to do what you are convinced God is telling you to do, somebody ties your hands? What is it? And you can't even speak. You can't even say what's going on. You're having trouble articulating your pain. What is it that you're supposed to do? Here's the answer. Here's the answer to the riddle as to how do I move on from this space? How is it that I can declare that I refuse to stay like this and mean it? Here's all we got to do. Move forward. That's all that has to happen. And eventually you are laying down. Eventually, as hard as it may be, you got to get up. You got to sit up. As difficult as it might be, you got to go ahead and stand up. You have to use different muscles, because everything you've taken for granted now is in basically a sort of a paralytic type of a situation, because everything is bound at this point. So you got to get up. You've heard the voice of God tell you it's time to move on from some stuff. You've been told on more than one occasion that you have got to forgive those people. You've been told on a number of occasions you've got to put the baggage down. You got to take that stuff off of you, and you got to move on with your life. Okay, that's it. That's really all I got to share. Number one, you ain't got to stay in that condition if you don't want to. Some of you are hiding behind business. Some of you are hiding behind ministry. Some of you are hiding behind your success. Because underneath all that success is that scared little child that was supposed to have been protected and taken care of. Instead of, you were being taken advantage of, and you still haven't gotten past that. None of it matters. None of it. None of the money that you have made or the money that you're going to make. The thousands of people that either coming to see you speak, or the thousands upon thousands that are going to hear you speak and read your books and all of that stuff. None of that matters if you do not deal with the thing that still bothers you. The thing that you have sort of the thing that's scabbed over, but you still just kind of pushed it to the side. You hadn't healed it. You've treated it a little bit, but you basically ignored that it's there. You've even gone to the extent of using it as fuel to push you forward. But the problem is that's toxic energy, and you got to get rid of it. Because if you don't, it'll fool around and mess up everything that you're building right now. I'm sure you've heard me say that before. That's it. That's all we got. Ladies and gentlemen, I refuse. I'm not sure about you, but I refuse to stay like this. And while I was healing, I was told on more than one occasion to sort of slow down and not try to do too much. And every statement that came out of my mouth is, I am not staying in this condition. I'm going to walk again. I'm going to run again. I'm going to be Riley again. And this time I'm going to be a better version. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to have that same attitude. Now, I'm not trying to say that it's easy. I'm not trying to pretend that it would not come with a cost. But here's the thing. When you get up, when you move forward, everybody around you, everybody who's able to see you will get to know God in a much deeper way. Because here's the part we didn't share. The part that we didn't share is the fact that resurrections were not an everyday event, but they happened enough. They happened enough to where people didn't trip when it happened. But it was always within 3 days. Always within 3 days. Somebody passed away, you got 3 days. There's a chance you might come back. In this case, Lazarus was gone 4 days. He's gone past the expiration date. It's over. It's done. Now, because Jesus told him to come forward, because Lazarus got up and he came out, the people around him got to see God in a much deeper way. Listen, some people's deliverance is tied into your deliverance. Some people's ability to be set free will only come after you're set free. Because what happens is most people believe God for what's already happened. But a lot of people have trouble believing God for what can happen in the future, moving forward. Yeah, he can make it rain. Yeah, he can heal my body. Yeah, he can change Coke to Pepsi and all that kind of stuff. But can he really deal with my issues? That answer will be a resounding yes when you stand up, when you get up and declare the fact that, look, my life was dead. My situation killed me. And it's okay. As a matter of fact, it's good that it killed me, because now that I'm up, I am brand new and I'm leaving all that stuff in the tomb. Ladies and gentlemen, I refuse, and I hope you do, refuse to stay like this. That's all we got. Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you, as always, if you're not regularly attending a Bible study, please find one and get there. And don't just go, hold those teachers accountable to teach you something for real. Teach you the truth. Make sure they are on their job. If you're not regularly in a prayer situation, do that. If you're not regularly studying on your own, please do that, because your whole life is tied into everything about what we do. It should be tied into the healthy things. We're struggling with relationships. Well, these things can be fixed. These things can be dealt with in a much greater way when we study, when we pray, when we're in a good frame of mind and we're ready to move forward. Put the baggage down, y'all. Put the stuff down. The malice, the unforgiveness, all the issues, all the hate, all of that stuff. Put it down and get on with your life. We'll be back together very soon. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. And I guess I hadn't said this a while, but I'll see you at the finish line.